Okay, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Andrew Westall, and I am thrilled to be your host this afternoon as we gather for our annual Creative Life Lecture from 2021 writer-in-residence here at UTSC, Elle Jones. I'd like to begin by acknowledging this land on which the University of Toronto operates, and by asking you all to engage with this acknowledgement for a moment. For thousands of years, this has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. As a community of writers and creators, which a lot of us are in this room right now, many of us wrestle with questions of setting and place every day as we pursue our craft. We talk about conflict, how conflict can arise from a particular setting or between settings, how a character or a community can engage both positively and negatively with a given piece of land, and how a story can emerge from that engagement. We were just talking about that earlier today in one of my classes, like literally an hour ago. When we acknowledge the traditional land upon which we work and the people who've always called this place home, we acknowledge how every day we're creating stories and images, not only on the page, but in the world around us, with our actions, but also with our non-actions, our inactions, our reluctance toward change, and our tendency as humans to stick our heads in the sand. When we hear the land acknowledgement, we hope we can respond to it the best way we know how, with creativity, with empathy, and with stories and images of action. I'd like to ask everyone to take a moment of quiet right now, switch off your cameras and just sit and breathe to consider this response, wherever you may find yourself on the land. Thank you very much. Welcome back, everybody. This event is usually in person, and it's usually the kind of the big celebration with the core creative writing community, but everyone in English and everyone even beyond throughout the campus who've been engaging either with our writer-in-residence or with creativity and arts on campus. But we're super happy to see you guys all here virtually anyway, and I hope this event can still serve as a milestone of sorts as we all near the end of this most challenging academic year in generations. As is tradition, we'd like to begin the event today with a few readings from UTSC student writers. In fact, this year, we're going to have students read Elle Jones onto the stage, and we're going to have students read her off the stage as well. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first student reader, Farah Gafor. Farah's work appears in Hobart, Room, Ninth Letter, Brightwall, Dark Room, and elsewhere. Her poems have been recognized by the League of Canadian Poets, the Alliance for Young Writers and Artists, Hollins University, and Columbia College. In addition, her work has been nominated for Best New Poets and the Best of the Net Anthology twice. She studies accounting at the University of Toronto, Scarborough. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Farah Gafor.
Hi everyone, my name is Farah, and I just wanted to say that Elle has been such a great influence for my work over the semester. I've written so much good work during creative writing circles every week. So my first poem is I'm Going to Butcher This. A man stands on stage, his cue cards flashing like white eyes, and says he's going to butcher this, butcher that, and butcher all these names in particular. But he won't, because the butcher, my favorite, takes what is beautiful and breaks it so gently, perhaps 18 to 20 years before it attains natural brokenness, and its flesh invites the knife so vertical once that engine has puttered to a stop, and all the necessities are unburdened and clock out. They exit with a sigh, water falling out of the workplace, and what is left we find almost indulgent, For some, bodies can't complete the day without it. For some, they would rather eat their own hands. But this is also perfection. The butcher would say, "Why am I even reciting this like a prayer?" But I'm not finished, because if you pull everything apart like a puzzle, at the end, all is analyzed down to the bone of the metaphor, when all the good meat has surrendered to the packaging, and the packaging of the soul, especially when you take it home to your family proud. And perhaps this summons all this instrumental warmth, breathing, beating, so alive and brief. And maybe your children take this for granted. And maybe I take all this for granted. Maybe the butcher is only a bridge, and this man on the stage doesn't care for travel and doesn't know what a name would sound like if he tried to abridge it to need and a patient wrist and of sweetness fitful and grand. And somewhere there is an engine puttering clumsy death, and somewhere someone has chewed off their fingers. But maybe I am in my best dress tonight, and my name is standing naked all alone on stage, and all I can do is retrieve my steel and change into a perfumed suit of blood to do his only job, because there is nothing more important, because there's nothing that can live without a name. Thank you.
Thank you so much for spectacular work. Our next reader is Isla Mclaughlin, a second-year student exploring creative writing, film and literature, and human geography as areas of study. Isla is awaiting her first publication for her poem Thunderstorms on the Farm in the upcoming issue of the Scarborough Review. Isla writes in a variety of genres, modeling her work after creatives like Rob Sheffield, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and Sally Rooney. Please welcome Isla to the virtual stage.
Hello. Those are wonderful poems, and thank you so much for having me today. I have two poems that I've written over the term in the poetry class, so I'll start with those. The first one's called Speeding in the U-Haul. Poison ivy climbs the apartment walls, but you squeal, oh, the character. The paint-chipped windowsill will hold your crystals on the full moon, and the promise I won't notice the warped floorboard at Christmas dinner. Under the grand chandelier in the dining room with outdated paneling, with homemade newspaper crowns and repurposed jars filled with boxed wine. Authentic pocket doors are worth the distance from the old campus grounds and the cost of new sneakers for the longer walk to the nearest subway station. We trade good coffee for the nosy old lady in the wobbly chair by her door. Her rumors of ghost scratching headboards will become bedtime stories, preluding lullabies of obnoxious fighting from the apartment downstairs. Did you want to plaster Rosie beside the front door with the broken lock? Warmed oat milk left in a ceramic bowl for the stray you named Tomboy, because another mouth to feed will help pay the ridiculously high rent. Bicycles with wicker baskets left in the narrow hallway won't upset the neighbors. They must dream of dodging a basket full of stolen flowers before working their 9 to 5. Tupperware containers filled with oatmeal cookies will be our peace offerings. Since we cannot invite them for dinner until we have a dining table and chairs, we'll settle for papier-mâché decorations made from vintage architectural digests and moonlight Charlie horses from carrying the thrifted armchairs 5 blocks. Bed bugs lurking beneath the rug my cousin lent us until we can afford our own. Tote bags on doorknobs swallowing wallets only filled with dreams and loose change. The landlord with the hairy chest and one gold tooth doesn't frighten you. But my cowboy boots you said would be a waste of money are clattering. Yet I wear lower necklines and pink lip gloss, turn tips for the safety deposit. Thank you. So I'm gonna move on to my second poem. It's called Somersaults. I like to do somersaults in dresses, with my legs momentarily above my head and floral underwear on display, lifting my mother from the park bench like the hem lifts above my hips and her hand lifts to spank me so the other mothers don't think I'm unladylike. I cut the bottom of my shirt with safety scissors in the 6th grade girls' bathroom before class, but I'm sent to the principal's office, my mother already sobbing over the phone as I'm handed a stained sweater from the lost and found, zipped to hide my exposed belly button. I take semi-naked pictures in my childhood bedroom, barely legal and eager to be seen. I contort my body to make my hips appear fuller, but fold when the doorknob turns, and my mother storms in red face, her hands to my phone like a magnet. I have sex with my prom date in the dark, so he doesn't see my bare skin. As my dress spills onto the motel carpet, he claws at my body with blind hands, while I tell him I like it, because it would be impolite not to. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of the keynote.
Thank you, Isla. Thank you so much. That was really wonderful work. Just a note to everyone, if anyone has friends who aren't here yet, text them the passcode, because I'm getting a few emails about people not knowing the passcode. All right, our final student reader is Joseph Donato, a second-year student studying creative writing and anthropology. He has work published in Self's Emerging Voices magazine and will appear in this year's issue of the Scarborough Review as well. Aside from writing poetry and fiction, Joseph also enjoys escape rooms, Taylor Swift, and lottery tickets.
Hey, first of all, thank you, Farah and Isla, so talented. Thank you for making me follow that. And I'm gonna be reading 3 poems that I've written for my Poetry 1 class with the amazing Randy Lundy. And I'm very excited to be here, so thank you. And this first one is called You Eat My Breakfast. Your kiss is violent, a tornado devastating farmland, driving cattle into town, tearing through grain mills that spill golden blood in the fields. You suck water from the soil, dehydrate the earth so that creeks disappear, the ground cracked as my tongue. You cripple my gardens, pluck daisies from the dirt till I'm nothing but mud and shit. With calloused fingers, you dig for bodies and find only seeds. Seeds you steal so that no springtime will make me beautiful. You siphon sap from maple trees until they collapse in on themselves. Drain the sky before the crops get a taste. Swish the rainwater in your cheeks. You've never been taught table manners. I peel the grapes you swallow, consume the stems and imagine fullness. Jaw sore from chewing, stomach stretched to its limit. You are deaf to my pleas, to my dry tongue that begs to ask how one man can possibly eat so much. Thank you. And then this one, it's one of my favorite poems that I've written about growing up, and it's called I'm Scared of the Tooth Fairy. Its fingers taste like mint and burnt matches. Part my lips like I do mother's blinds to watch the neighbors play street hockey. I never joined them, afraid that the ball would leave gaps in my smile. Fingernails tap on my teeth like a boy's pudgy fists against aquarium glass in the dentist's office, until one incisor slants to the back of my throat. My tooth is plucked like the apples I've been avoiding, and my tongue fills the emptiness, tastes pennies. I ache for when I chewed caramel, bit into hard candies unafraid, before I consider tooth decay and cavities and winged creatures with their hands in my mouth. A coin is slipped beneath my pillow, the cost of youth it takes so greedily. It grins with rows of baby teeth not its own, yellow tombstones blown crooked by wind. Where did that smile go? It hisses, pressing my tooth into blackened gums. It climbs through my bedroom window without looking back. Thank you. And then I got one more. It's called Good Intentions. It's my most recent one. I guess it's like a little bit graphic towards the middle, so just a little bit of a heads up. Nothing awful, don't worry. Okay, so this is Good Intentions. When I was 6, I drowned spiders in the bathtub. I pinched their legs and pulled them beneath the surface. My mother shrieked, caught the clump of dead insects with cupped hands. She asked what I had done, and I told her the truth. I was teaching them to swim. When my sister first came home from the hospital, she wailed like a raccoon beneath the tractor's tires. Through my bedroom window, I heard my parents beg her for a few hours of undisturbed sleep. 12 minutes later, I crept into the nursery with a bottle of grandma's triazolam, held a handful to my sister's lips before my parents yanked me back and hit me. My sister continued to cry. In middle school, my friend soured our sleepover the night of the spring formal, complaining about her cystic acne. When she fell asleep on the couch, I used the kitchen steak knife to scrape the pimples from her skin. I removed only 2 before she woke and screamed for her parents, our faces red for different reasons. Now, I'm alone in a booth, chewing a plastic fork between my molars, 3 hours and 4 minutes after my boyfriend said he'd be here. I write his name on a cocktail napkin, drown it in the Shirley Temple the waitress brings. The letters bleed into each other until he's an indecipherable ink blot that would make my psychiatrist salivate. I ask for more napkins. Thank you. And thank you for listening. I had a lot of fun. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Elle, and thank you, everyone else. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thanks, Joseph. Thanks so much for sharing your work. All right, everybody. It is time to introduce Elle Jones. I just want to let you know that we will have a short Q&A session afterwards with Elle. So if any questions pop up, anything you want to talk about, just put it in your back pocket, and we'll have some time at the end. And then we'll also have a couple of readers at the end as well, once Elle's finished. So, as if you don't know already, Elle is a poet, an educator, a journalist, this is all memorized now, an abolitionist living in African Nova Scotia. She was the 5th Poet Laureate of Halifax. In 2016, Elle was a recipient of the Burnley Rocky Jones Human Rights Award for her community work and work in prison justice. She's a co-founder of the Black Power Hour, a live radio show with incarcerated people on CKDU that creates space for people inside to share their creative work and discuss contemporary social and political issues. Elle served as the 15th Nancy's Chair of Women's Studies at Mount St. Vincent University for the 2017-2019 term. Elle was also an Atlantic Journalism Award winner in 2018 and 2019. And Elle would like to pay tribute to the many nameless and unrecognized women whose work makes it possible for her to be here today. So without further ado, please welcome UTSC's writer-in-residence, Elle Jones.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And thank you for all you've done all this semester. Always getting my emails, I don't know what's going on. What's going on today? So, and just thank you so much for all the work. I know it takes a lot to coordinate, especially online. Thank you so much to Farah, Isla, and Joseph. Those were amazing poems. I'm so glad you shared. I could listen to students read all day. And just thank you everybody who does the work in this program, whether that's all the other students that help edit this work that we hear in the workshops, all the faculty, the support staff, everybody that just, makes these beautiful creative things happen all over campus. So much love to all of you. It's been really beautiful. I haven't been able to be with you. I kept saying, well, maybe COVID, maybe we'll get vaccines. Maybe I'll be able to come in April, and I don't think it's going to happen. But hopefully sometime, maybe in the fall, I'll be able to stop by or something. At some point, I will see all of you. I'll let you know if I'm in Toronto. So just thank you, all of you. I got to keep the time for once because I want to make sure that people have time to read. So I'm going to just do some poems at you, and Andrew, be ruthless with me and make me stop. Since it's Women's History Month this month, I thought I'd open with this one. We are the seat at the table. We descend from Sojourner Truth and Anne of Green Gables. We are Idle No More and Angela Davis. We are the grandmothers and the differently able. We are the hair that refuses to be tamed. We are honoring treaties and land claims. We are the movements that history never names. We are the waitresses and maids, the ponytails and braids, the queer woman in Black Lives Matter holding up your parade. We are the femmes who refuse to be shamed. We are the Mohawk woman calling the warriors to the barricades. We are lemonade. We are equal work for equal pay. From homemakers to women stitching clothes for $1 a day, we are Harriet Tubman toting that shotgun when the men got too afraid. We are the heartbeat of the nation. We are most of the nurses and the educators. We are the women in prison raising their babies. We've been advised to be patient, and we're tired of waiting. We are the anarchists and the peacemakers. We are being trained for resistance. We gain strength from walking with our sisters. We go to work and keep the house in visitor conditions. Unlike Charlie Sheen, we are actually winning. We are the anti-nuclear movement and abolition. We are the bosses called bitches for our ambition. We are plumbers, welders, and electricians. We run the whole office and are called the assistants. We can make a can of soup stretch to feed a whole family for dinner. We are grandmothers canning food for the winter. We are women's work like quilting and knitting, so you better believe we will make it through with wisdom like Athena. We are the grandmothers of the Plaza de Mayo in Argentina, Latinas, Desis, and Filipinas. We are the love between Gabrielle and Zena with power in our arms like Serena. We wear whatever the hell we want, from hijabs to bikinis. We are the nannies and the cleaners, the peasants and the Zapatistas. We have survived the patrols at the border, the backroom abortions, the guards and the wardens. We march against war for the mothers and orphans. We are the Guatemalan woman surviving torture. We are the indigenous woman fighting for clean water, the trans woman resisting the bathroom laws. We are the Jane Does in the missing person reports. We lead the peace movements for a better world for our daughters. We are the authors who had to take the names of men. We are feminist movements from Mexico to Uganda to Phnom Penh. We are the hashtag I Believe Women. We are sex workers unionizing, the queens and trans women at Stonewall fighting, the women in Saudi Arabia driving. We are the girls resisting sexist advertising. We are more than Photoshop and vanity sizing. We are the indigenous woman who pushed for an inquiry. We are Queen Nzinga protecting our country from the colonizer. We are the environmental activists who chain themselves to bulldozers, the civil rights activists facing the fire hoses, the tenancy boards challenging public housing eviction notices, the women prisoners in Kingston when the men cut off their clothes. We are hunger strikes in prison for women's votes and the force-feeding tubes shoved down their throats. We are the teen girls resisting sexist dress codes. We are the 92-year-old woman walking during the Montgomery bus boycotts, the hidden figures behind the astronauts, the sewing machine and the pans and pots. We are suffragettes and sans culottes. We are the mothers of Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, and Eric Garner. We are karma, and we have millennia of survival as our armor. We are Tina Turner, finally leaving Ike. And we burn bright with the fires of Joan and Arc and the strength of thousands of martyrs. We have justice as our target. We are calls for an end to poverty and for affordable housing, reproductive rights and every life counting, respect for Mother Earth and her surroundings, access to treatment and an end to prison crowding. We are a living wage and basic allowance, and we are waving signs and fists, not drowning. We are singing songs of peace and shouting. We are generations of resistance that cannot be put down. We extend beyond elections, whoever's in the White House. We have been to the top of the mountain, and we have survived from genocides to witch trials, and they could not burn us out or wipe us out or push us aside. We are femmes, butches, trans, lesbians, women, and women identified. We are standing here with pride, and still we rise. Still we rise. Still we rise. Thank you, everybody. I'm just going to keep going. You've heard all my set poems, so you get to hear a bit of the back catalog today. Obviously, when I was thinking of this term, the creative life, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? What is creative? Most of my creativity this semester, I suppose, has been poured into getting people out of jails and prisons. So I wanted to read this poem that I don't do that much, but here we go. T comes into prison, a proud white supremacist. He's got swastikas I can't talk, okay, starting again. T comes into prison, a proud white supremacist. He's got swastikas tattooed on his neck and KKK on the knuckles on his fist. In the last prison he was in, there's a guy he already killed. But there's a black guy on the range, and somehow they start to chill. He says, just cover that shit up around me if we're going to coexist. And they're both doing life over blood that they have spilled, and slowly, somehow, their friendship starts to build. Well, T gets transferred out, and from the depths, he sends a letter. Thank you for your friendship, for helping me be better. He says, my sister was gang raped at a party by black guys, and I decided every single black guy was the same in my eyes. I was so angry that my hate was twisting me inside. Thank you for showing me another way. Thank you for saving me. If we've never struggled to make a change, what do we know of bravery? What do we know of transformation in these places where we're breaking people down? D is waiting in the hole. It's been 7 or 8 months now. One day he loses it in his cell and starts trashing everything around, and then he hears a knock. And he thinks, what now? I can't take anymore. This pressure has to stop. And a hand reaches through his slot. And D's on edge, thinking it's someone here to take a shot. The guy's high up in a gang, a soldier at the top, but he opens up his fist. And there's a jade crucifix. And all he says is simply, I thought you needed this. What do we know of human kindness and the places it exists? When we sentence people to life and say their humanity's eclipsed, and we send them behind the walls and condemn them to the abyss and massacre toast bread and hides it in the fridge. He grew up on a remote reserve with no food when he was a kid. Captain Crunch at Christmas is what his mother knew of gifts, and uncles struggling with their own addictions who taught him how to fix. When residential schools left generations broke in bits, and the other guys bug him now because he only owns one lime green pair of sweats. So when someone offers him $20, that's as good as it gets. They ask him to heat up butter in the microwave and throw it in a face, and he gets dragged off to solitary, but for him, it's not a waste because $20 is enough to get a couple weeks canteen. What do we know of desperation when our stomach's full when we go to sleep? What do we know of wounding where the trauma runs so deep and so we lock people down, never allowed out into the open, but the light gets through the cracks in the places that we're broken, so many lives that disappear and their stories are unspoken. So we never hear of resilience, of creativity, of hoping. I'm reading Facebook and I see a status that touches me profoundly. I love my murderer friends, one of the women proclaims proudly, and everyone reacts with horror and disgust. But she says, I spent years in with these women, the only ones I could trust, and I'm not going to throw them under the bus. I'm not going to abandon. You don't know what's inside people when you just judge them at random. And I know what she means. When murderer is the worst label, when we couple it with love, it makes our judgments seem unstable. And so we condemn a woman, loving deeper than we're able, as if murderer and loved one could never be connected. What do we know of affection when we don't live together in oppression? Everything I know about forgiveness, it was prisoners taught the lesson. And I keep suggesting to a teenage prisoner that he go outside for exercise. You'll get sick, I tell him. You'll disappear inside depression. And finally, he tells me that a year after he'd been inside, he was let out in the yard and he bent and touched a blade of grass. And then he overheard a conversation between guards. They said, that kid's been in so long, he's happy just to touch the ground. And after that, it was too hard, so he just stays on the range now. What do we know of freedom when we've never been held down? And there's a young Mi'kmaq man who calls me and tells me that he's fine. And then I link him to his mother and he starts crying on the line. And he tells her he almost died because he drank hand sanitizer. What do we know of pain when numb's the only option for survival? And there are teenagers inside who are shaking on arrival. And I think that it's obscene that every courtroom has a Bible. And then we sentence human beings to places where if they're suicidal, they strip them of their clothes and throw them into solitary confinement. And once you get a record, that's a judgment that is final. And there's no supports when you get out, so you're forced to repeat the cycle. What do we know of forgiveness when our vengeance still is primal? And there's so many minds going to waste full of knowledge that is vital. Who knows if the cure for AIDS is in a mind that's sitting idle, and in spite of their situation, they're still maintaining their humanity. I host a radio show with prisoners and people complain about profanity. And I tell them music is the only thing that helps them keep their sanity. And actually, I say, we have people calling in from solitary confinement, so excuse them if they don't quite meet your standards of refinement. And they're assigned to jobs in sweatshops making products on consignment, or they're deprived of medication, and you want them to be silenced? What do you know of self-expression when you've never had to fight to write? And there are suicidal women forced to sleep without their mattresses, dehumanizing conditions seen as just everyday practices, and people talk of justice as if it's just a scale that balances, while families and communities are grieving all the absences. If we've never sat inside a cell, what do we possibly know of damages? But I've seen things come out of prison that I would call miraculous. Love, forgiveness, resilience, generosity, and thankfulness. What I know of being human comes from being a prison activist. So to all my people doing time, thank you for making me compassion. Thank you. You can see why I never do that poem. I got all emotional. I don't do that poem a lot. All right, into the back catalog, and Andrew, just tell me when I have 5 minutes. This is every year I write maybe 1 page poem, not spoken word, and I never read them. So you're actually, I don't think I've ever read this poem out loud, but just last week, Randy Riley, if you've read Until We Are Free, I co-wrote an essay in that book with him. He finally got bail in the long road to fighting his wrongful conviction and got out. And almost this time, 3 years ago, I was at his home for Easter with his family, and I wrote this poem at the time. I don't think I've ever read this out loud, so it's called Easter Sunday 2018, and it's for Randy. I am in a slowly dying community. It is Easter Sunday, a year since your mother died after the first week of your trial, and we are in good spirits. I should make duck, your aunt says, and one of your uncles disagrees. Duck is too greasy, he says, and pauses, especially the black ducks. And across the table, your other uncle says, have you ever seen a black duck? And then he ducks. You sent me here. My family would love to have you, you tell me, when you find out I have no plans for Easter. No one should be alone on Easter, you say, before the cell door closes on you. And you, thinking of me, send me to the love of your family and jokes about white folk and laughter. On Tuesday, we will squeeze our blackness into hard courtroom benches, try to control the black looks on our faces, discipline our unruly black hands and the twists of our lips, the tucks of our tongues and the volume of our voices for the white gaze of juries and crowns and media. On Tuesday, we will be criminals and family of criminals. But today, on Easter, there is storytelling and joyous loudness and blackness free and pie to take home. We remember, we are still here. There is good in us. This is how we survive. Thank you. Never read that out loud, but I thought for Randy. All right, I'm gonna do this poem, and I don't know how much time I have. I like this poem, I like doing it. All right, it's a poem to the ancestors. Dear ancestors, this is a birthday card from the wretched of the earth. So I'm sorry if it's birthed in blood or written in the drops of sweat from the brows of the ones who dream of enough bread and not of cake. This is a bringing into life that never stops. This card is reaping the crops you sowed, and it's getting ahead of itself because it is always imagining a better, and a better tomorrow. You may not be able to make the letters out because this is a tribute from the ones denied education in countries without literacy programs that allow the neglected to make it out of poverty. So instead of happy birthday, it says hasta la victoria siempre with a postscript. We believe the worker has an equal stake in the society they labor to build. This is a birthday card stilled from the ache in the belly of the planet's hungry. So they will not wish you steak for birthday dinner, but invite you to humbly share their rice and beans. And the message on the napkin folded into a card says, we will not leave your vision unfulfilled. This card is the hallmark of resistance. Greetings from the ones who get no break, working 15 hours a day beside a sewing machine. The teens at border crossings and refugees in container ships seeking escape. Those held in structural intervention units who send the message, thank you for jolting the world awake. Thank you for shaking our foundations. And in the rubble, finding a place where equality is still a possibility and where the ideal will never die. And FYI, we are tired of fake promises of liberation. We want the real thing, born from cane fields and street vendors in the heat of Black August and the drumbeat of emancipation. These are our wishes when we blow the candles out because there's no electricity and we have to save. We have to save and be saved. This is a birthday card from the crater left after the invasion, and it echoes with the news not heard on network TV. You can label it propaganda if you like, or you can call it the unheard cries of the majority making less than $1.25 a day. This is a card the CIA is trying to erase and is not sold in Miami, but it is scraped together from tips of hotel workers and your mommy's 7-day-a-week job as a domestic and her layoff notice when her knees gave out and made from recycled trash in the dump where children play. Down here among the unclean, where schools don't have a latrine and the politicians come to power and are only figurines, the bombs fall on the hospital stoked by puppet regimes and they tell us revolution is just a whisper because its goals remain unseen. So this is a birthday card from the hearts that keep the flames burning, from those who are not turning away, The sparks that light up police stations and say, take your knee off our neck. And youths in Che Guevara and Black Lives Matter tees chanting, death to imperialism and fuck the police, while corporate execs rake in another bailout check and the illusion of choice extends for another election run. But we are not done. And we are sending you a message saying we do not forget your name. So this is a birthday card from the bus drivers who refused to deliver protesters to jail. No, the revolution did not fail. It is in the defiant fists of the riders being arrested in Zimbabwe, the torch handed from Mandela shouting Viva la Revolution upon his release from his apartheid cell. This is a birthday card heard in the rebels yell and the sound of the colonizer's statue breaking as it fell. This is a birthday card from all who go without presents because we believe in a better future. A dream sutured into us at the hands of ghetto doctors from the peasants and township residents and political dissidents convicted on manufactured evidence. This is happy birthday sung by a chorus of minimum wage workers while they cover their mouths because their corporate boss denies them PPE. No, we are not free, but this card will not be delivered to you by an underpaid worker at Amazon. This card was not bought in Babylon, but created in the dawn of a better world. It unfurled in the flags of regiments marching through Africa and in the smoke of Zapatista camps. It is not in an envelope because it cannot be contained. It only unfolds. It unfolds. It is unfolding. In the eviction notices and summonses to court, but it is unfolding. In the bodies lying on the concrete, it is unfolding beyond death because it cannot die. This is the birthday card deferred for the day we will be celebrating together in freedom when the battle is won. And comrades drop their weapons and with tears flowing down their faces, hold hands and say, we have unfolded. We are unfolding. And the message, it still lives on. Thank you. I don't know how much time I have. One more maybe? And then questions and then people. Is that how it works?
Do you really think I'm gonna risk stopping you at this point?
We're on a time, so why don't I do one more question and we'll see where we are.
Okay, that sounds good.
Back to jail. So I don't know if people have read Goodnight Moon, if you know what I'm talking about. This is my adaptation of Goodnight Moon. I have a series of poems that are based on like children's rhymes. So some of you heard White Jurors at my intro, which was based on like one little, two little, three little. This is part of that series. So this is my rewrite of Goodnight Goodnight Moon. In a provincial jail, there's a little room with a toilet and a sink and a smell of mildew and a slit of a window with a sliver of the moon and a radio on a shelf playing a tune and a metal cot and a metal slot and a night that's either too cold or too hot. An officer in the spot by the stairs and 3 more guards sitting in chairs and the shadow of the laws that put people in there. And the eye of the camera watching you sitting and a photocopied picture of your mother and children and a heart with a hole for the loved ones you're missing. And restless dreams where you wake up shivering and a door with a lock and a window with bars and a corner of the sky showing just 1 star and a comb and a brush and a toilet that won't flush and a guard on his rounds ordering, hush. So good night room, like a little tomb. Good night window, barely showing the moon. Good night laws that aren't changing soon. Good night radio, good night news. Good night cot, good night slot. Good night down in solitary where the world forgot. Good night sheets tied up in a knot. Good night bad dreams and regretful thoughts. Good night clanging doors and the camera shot. Good night locks. Good night clocks. Good night countdown to the day you get out of the box. Good night mildew. Good night mold. Good night lights on all night down in the hole. Good night heart with its little hole. Good night heat. Good night cold. Good night foam mattress. Good night comb. Good night to the crumpled picture of home. Good night dripping sink and toilet that won't flush. And good night to the officers ordering, hush. Good night patrol. Good night stare. Good night outside. Good night, air. Good night, love. Good night, care. Good night, prisoners, everywhere. Thank you. I lied because I want to do one more and then I'll shut up. But I just remembered that all this time I wanted to do this poem. All right. And this is, I swear, the last one, and then questions or whatever. Another one I never do because my mom hated on it. I wrote it and I read it to my mom and she was hateful. So, and then I never did it. So pulling this out of the back of my phone, I just found it in my phone the other day. So we'll close with Women's History Month again. So here we go. Well, the boys dress in blue and pink for the girls, already defined when she enters the world and her family tells her, what a pretty child. But you know you'd be prettier if you just smiled. Come and give your uncle a hug. Sit on his lap a little while. Let me put a comb through your hair so it looks a little less wild. Cross your legs when you sit, dear. It's only polite. In elementary school, when we played in the dirt, they said, make sure you wear bicycle shorts under your skirt and don't you turn cartwheels, you'll look like a flirt. The boys waved hands in the air while the little girls learned that good little girls, they wait for their turn. And good little girls put everyone first. Such a grown little woman helps her mother with the housework. Beware of the places you know that men lurk. Watch where you walk to avoid the perverts. If you're out after dark, it's just what you deserve. Dress codes taught us to be ashamed of our curves, and Little Red Riding Hood met the wolf in the night, so girls should stay home where they're safe and they're quiet. As we grew, we learned our bodies were something to hide. If you took your purse to the bathroom, you were mortified. And make sure your skirt doesn't rise above your knees. Make sure that your breasts are strapped down and squeezed. But magazines told us our bodies were only to please, so we were caught between slut and being a tease. In high school, there were teachers who followed us with their eyes, and we joked we'd get good grades if our shirts went down a size, and we knew our virginity was seen as a prize, and we knew that our bodies, they come with a price. If you buys you dinner or drinks, then stay on alert. And we all knew the names of the girls who got hurt while the boys in the locker rooms exchanging high fives. And good little girls grow to teenagers who cry, but once you're a woman, they call it a curse. They said Eve ate the apple. We learned that in church, and keep your legs closed was the only advice. Boys will be boys, they excused as they sighed, and so girls should be careful where they get their delight. And there's parts of our bodies they want to divide. Saddleback, muffin top, back fat, thunder thighs. And once you're over 30, might as well be in a hearse. Make sure your stomach is flat and your bosom is pert. An ugly woman, they say, there's nothing that's worse. And there's a scale of our worth if we're closer to white, or the way that blonde hair, they say, catches the light, and shades of foundation only tan when they squirt, and clothing that's only so tall and so wide, crush your toes into heels, squats for your backside. Just remember your body belongs to the world. And they told us our virtues more precious than pearls. And if someone assaults us, we probably lied, because you can't believe women when it's only our words, and you can't trust a woman not to just change her mind. She just wants attention. It's only her thirst. The boys could be boys if the girls would be fine. For just one little mistake, you can't ruin his life. Just think of his suffering. Isn't it worse? If she left with him willing, it's hardly coerced. I heard that her skirt even showed her behind. Cover your drink and keep spray in your purse. It's your job to control him. We learned that from birth, and the woman called crazy, we learned to despise. Like the woman called witches, they threw on the fires, and so we single them out and say, I don't like her. Why is she always so angry? Why can't she be nice? Didn't the verse tell us girls are of sugar and spice? Just be humble and modest. Don't take too much pride. Avoid the ice cream. Only get a small fries. Buy cream for your wrinkles. Wear a face mask at night. Don't let yourself go. Wear a dress you can twirl. Take your husband's name and put your own name aside. Be a good mother with children to serve. Don't touch the wine, and you know you should nurse. And everyone's entitled to give you advice. Defer to the men every time you converse. Put all your hopes and your dreams to the side. Give up your sleep and eat like a bird, and make sure you wear makeup to the day that you die. A nice open casket with your hair done in curls, discreet matching lipstick and earrings of pearl, and hold in your feelings until you might burst, because they say our rewards are in the next life. The boys get the statues and the girls get submersed, a man's wife or mother, while boys get the earth. The history books told us we did nothing of worth. Thank you, everybody. That's it from me. Yeah, my elder mom, we need to have her. Yeah, my mom just was like, I don't get it. Who turns cartwheels? That's what my mom said. All right, okay. So yeah, I have time for some questions, but
Thank you so
and then I
much.
make sure you have time for the reading as well.
Yeah, I think we might need a moment to gather ourselves, but does anyone have a question out there for Elle? The chat's been going nuts. A lot of people are wondering the title of that last
That one's
poem.
called Good Little Girls, and it like all that. I think everything I read you is like totally unpublished. That's all stuff I like almost never read and almost never do. So yeah,
Wow.
that was like my side list of poems.
Well, thank you so much for sharing it. Does anyone have a question out there? Maybe you want to chat it over or just throw your mic on.
Hi, Elle.
Hi.
It's Randy Lundy here.
Yes. Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Hot right
Good.
now. Wearing sweatpants doing poetry is a mistake.
I was just curious about the comment you just made, actually. Why is this stuff all unpublished and largely unread? And why did you choose to do it today?
Well, mostly because I mean, people have heard so much of what I would say is like my A list that I'm like, I can't just keep doing the same poems. So there's like the poems I know that I have memorized that like I do if you ask me for like a half-hour set, and then there's like everything else. So some of it was just, yeah, like let me see what I have that I haven't read in all these classes or anything. And then why did I don't know, I was trying to make choices kind of, I guess I was trying to take a bit of a tour of like, make sure I get prisons, women's stuff. Like I was sort of trying to give a bit of a range. It was called Creative Life. So I thought I was trying to sort of hit some points in my life and sort of follow my semester through. But why stuff unpublished? Because I never get around to because I have books and stuff sitting in my files and I just like never do anything with them unless I'm performing them is the answer. Sheer laziness. Sorry, that's the answer. And then, yeah, sometimes I just, do something and I never do it again. And yeah, my mom wasn't too enthusiastic about that poem, so I kind of got mad. So sometimes you're just like influenced by how an audience responds, right? And if you don't necessarily get a response, you kind of go, okay, I'll just like do this other thing. So, yeah.
Especially when it's your mom.
I don't think she understood it. I think she just, because I was going to Jamaica and I think she didn't understand it as like a Caribbean experience. So she was kind of like, I don't get it. And then she just like kept commenting. And then I just was like, okay, never mind. I won't even finish the poem. So then I think I just got mad and like stopped reading it. Every girl except my mom can relate to. Now I feel like I have to defend my mom. My mom's lovely. She's just, like she's blunt about what she thinks. She likes my COVID poem. But yeah.
I saw that Sham had a hand up briefly. Sham, did you have a question?
Hi, yes. I was just wondering, well, first of all, thank you so much for that poem. It was more specific to your mother. I think you sort of answered it as I'm wondering why she didn't like it. Like, did she share why she didn't like it? Because for me personally, as a woman, I loved that.
I think like she's like very like realistic. So when I said like, don't you turn cartwheels, you look like a flirt, she's like, what's bicycle short? We never wore shorts under our skirts. Like she just got like real literal about the thing. And then she was just kind of like, I don't know, she didn't go to school with boys, like she went to a girls' school. So I think she was like, I don't know, girls answer questions. So she just took it like super literally and argued with me about like the points in it. So yeah, I don't know. I couldn't answer for her. I think she just like, she didn't feel like it was her experience, I guess. I don't know. Maybe because she didn't grow up in North America, maybe like that was part of a different experience for her. But yeah. She did like the housework line. She agreed with that. She just didn't like relate to anything else. Sounds like my mom, someone said, yeah, yeah, I mean, she's just like blunt. So. And probably
Ada?
honestly, like trauma and me talking about rape and stuff, like she probably like didn't want me to talk about that, to be honest. I mean, she might have had some like fears of me, especially like going in the Caribbean and talking about it. Like she might have thought like, oh, they'll think this kind of way, you'll be judged. So maybe she was trying to discourage me from talking about sexual assault in public. Now that I think about it, that might have been part of it.
Ada, I see your hand. Want to go ahead?
Yes, hi. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much, Elle, for coming here today. So I have a question regarding some comments that you made at the Black Creative Series, and I'm hoping that you can elaborate here at this space. You mentioned several critiques about the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Office, of various English departments, not just at UFT, but at different institutions and tertiary institutions across Canada and beyond, in terms of the work, quote unquote, that they've been doing to try and address racism, address xenophobia, address homophobia, and all these different sorts of issues that are becoming very much highlighted now. And one of the comments that were made, not just by you, but by the attendees of that event, was that a lot of it is very much performative. So I want to know if you can address this space right now on your thoughts about this and tailoring that to your work in spoken word poetry, and especially for the crowd that we have here. I know we have some professors here, so I'm glad that they're here to hear your comments. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So what I said at that event is that I'm a EDI truther in terms of I don't think equity, diversity, inclusion is necessarily a helpful or even an inclusive frame. Like what I said too is that, you know, it was one thing a few years ago, like white people got jobs over you. Now what happens is people who are willing to be sort of politically astute or politically placated can get the jobs. But like if I did criminological research with data, I'm sure I'd have a job right now. I don't, so I have no job. And so there's a particular pain to the idea that we opened a lot of these doors, those of us who relentlessly spoke about racism and relentlessly worked for liberation. And now that the doors are open, people are climbing across our backs to shut the doors in our faces. But that's because equity, diversity, inclusion is not a frame of liberation. It's a frame that selects some people and leaves the majority of people behind. I've always known that the reason why I'm not valued is because the people I care about and the people I work with and the stuff I write about is about people who aren't valued. So if people don't value prisoners and they don't value deportees and they don't value working class Black people and they don't value Black women living in shelters, then they're not going to value me. And then everything I do and say is going to be threatening to the institution. And then what happens is a small level, I'm not saying this if every Black person gets a job, obviously there's many radical, wonderful Black people in the academy. I'm not painting with a broad brush, but I'm saying what we often are now seeing happening is very neoliberal people who weren't part of the struggle, who actually sneered at us and called us crazy, are now walking into huge consultancy jobs, advisorship jobs, all through this frame of EDI, while often directly continuing to push us out. And I don't believe that's liberation. What I'm interested in is Black liberation. You see that in my work. I care most deeply, and I believe that the liberation of all of us is invested in those people who are living at the sharp edge of state violence. The Fatuma Abdis who fought the deportation of her brother while not having citizenship herself. You know, like Randy Riley, who has organized prisons and is like the greatest abolitionist in Canada, but he's not an academic. He doesn't have a degree. He was in prison for his entire 20s. And the first thing he did when he got out was look for jobs for his cousins and send me to their house with forms for them to fill out. Like, he's an amazing person and he will never be seen. So if we have a framework that is selecting some Black people over others and then validating certain types of work over other types of work, if we have a framework that isn't invested in what's actually happening in our streets and in the places where Black people are actually living and dying, and if we have a framework that responds to police death by, you know, giving us a couple of more people on, like, you know, the board of governors, or, you know, we need more like people in boardrooms, or we need, you know, more Black police chiefs, or we need Black wardens, or we need more Black people to deport people, you know, like, let's drop bombs on people, but it's a Black woman now. Like, how does that bring us any liberation in our actual life? So if universities really care about liberation, they'll devote resources into community. They'll allow people to be in community doing our work. They'll support the work of elders. They'll support, you know, like the people who actually sustain and bring us knowledge, that have taught us everything we know. They build classrooms within community so we can go into our communities and actually teach without having to be in exile or be separate from the people who love and care for us. You know, like, we should be able to work in our home communities and work with the people who look like us without having to, you know, remove ourselves into separate spaces under the names of equity, diversity, inclusion. So I think it's a neoliberal project in the end. That doesn't mean Black people shouldn't get jobs, but I mean, what cost is a job? What is a job worth if that job comes at the expense of all of our energies fighting for our entire community? So, you know, I don't know. I mean, I guess over time, like, you know, I used to be like, oh, maybe I'll get a job on this round. Maybe I'll get a job on this round. Now they're hiring Black people, and I never did. And it's not because I'm not qualified. It's because I recognize that, you know, people are terrified of the things I'm going to say, and their fear that we might talk about racism in the institution. And so often those jobs become a management job, like managing other Black people for the name of the institution. So I think we have to be really careful about what we invest our time in. I mean, look at the stand yesterday. We have a Black girl getting up on the stand who, like, took a video of George Floyd and feels guilty because she didn't do enough. And you have the entire country laughing at her and saying, oh, she can't even speak. Who would wear that to court? What's wrong with her? You know, and this Black girl did nothing except for film and testify and witness. And she'll go home with nothing. She comes from nothing. She'll go home with nothing. She'll live with that trauma alone. And we don't have a world that loves that girl or supports that girl. And that girl is our queen. That girl is like the Black struggle. That girl should be honored everywhere, and she never will be. And, you know, we have to watch in pain as that girl gets up and no one will ever resource her while everybody else makes Black Lives Matter statements off like the back of George Floyd, and then people like her who will continue to suffer. So, you know, I just really think that we need to think about what liberation is, who is included. You know, if the work we do is not reaching the people who are like pushed out the most from society, what good is it? You know, what good is our work if it only lives for some people? It has to live for everyone. So, I will end there, I guess, because otherwise we'll be here all day. But is that good? Is that what you were, the answer you were hoping for?
Yeah, that was excellent. That was beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are we good? I want to hear these poems.
More questions out there? Elle, I had one question if no one else does. I was just really curious. We've talked a lot in our classes together with you about your own specific kind of mode of creativity. And you said earlier before you started that your creativity has been used on your prison work since this term began. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit more about what you mean specifically to do with your creative energy and how it's been used. And because I think it's been a real challenge for a lot of our students to get their heads around you think about creativity as an energy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, and maybe that's because I work in a number of phases. So sometimes, you know, you feel like you have like your journalistic sort of feeling and you're like, okay, like this weekend I was really hyped up and I wrote a whole article of every journalistic story I hadn't written in like 6 months. And I just put them all in one story. I was like 6 things you need to know, you know? But I mean, working on like habeas corpus applications with prisoners trying to fix their conditions is a creative act. Like it's an act of literacy. You know, as people tell you their conditions, you like the last few days is what I've been doing is there's a behavioral range. It's basically a lockdown range. And the guys have been going to court and trying to get that like seen as an unfair confinement, assaultory confinement. And the judges won't believe them or listen to them. What happens is they just call in the jail officials and the jail officials say, well, you know, it's a security thing. These are like the badly behaved people. So it's not segregation, and they keep getting smacked down. And like over and over again, they keep trying to go to court to get justice and they're failing. So now over the last sort of week, they've been organizing and writing letters. And these are amazing letters, like filled with international law and like comments on the charter. And they call them and read them to me. And then I have to like transcribe them. And then we're like, how do we publish this? How do we make this something that people will pay attention to? Because if judges can't understand them and listen, who will listen? And like, what will that look like to organize with these people that are in so much risk because they're already deemed like the badly behaved people that can be locked away? And, you know, there's like guards beating people with canes. There's like, you know, like massive human rights abuses that's just not there. So I think that when you're working with the guys or with the people, sometimes you have to, you know, spell things out. Sometimes you literally work through a form and you spell every word on the form. You know, like listening, testifying with them, that is creative work. So it's not work that will be, you know, published. Their work might be published. I mean, we're looking to like see how we can get that out there, but that is, I think all of that is the work. It matters as work. And I do think it is creative work as we think about, you know, how do we deal with this? How do we organize? It's love work too, like just listening and picking up the phone. And as people call and they want an ear, they want someone to say like, yes, I hear you, I believe you, you know, those kind of things. So a lot of times, you know, that energy is never, it's not stuff that's published, whether academically or even creatively, although it ends up showing up in poems a lot of the times. You know, it's not anything, you know, you speak about it, but it's nothing that, you know, you name or put out there. But I think it's really important work. So, you know, Randy in the last week being out of prison and being in his community and like going to his mother's gravesite with him and just sitting in his kitchen with his family is like creative work to me. Because so much of this work I do is bound up in living that life. And I don't want to separate my work from the things I'm doing. And I never want to prioritize, I need to sit at a computer over, I need to come in your community and sit in your kitchen right now and talk to your aunt. Like, I don't think they're separate, but I also don't think that, one should be held up as like, this is amazing work and one is never seen, because I think when we say the creative life, I think that living our Black life is also creative. We have been creative through our struggle. We have survived in creativity. We have continued to build and mold and shape a world. And that is important work too, so.
Well, on behalf of everyone, the English department, the wider campus, certainly myself and my students and all the students in creative writing, I just want to offer my sincerest thanks to you, Elle. You've been so inspiring over this time with us. You've been so present with us. I think that's what a lot of our students have said to me after you've left. She's so present. So thank you for offering yourself to us so forthrightly, for sharing your wisdom and your care with us, for all of the performances of your incredible poetry, and it is all A-list stuff. Come on, just look at the chat. All of us have been stunned by your passion and your grace this term, so thank you. It's been a complete privilege to have you in our classes, sitting on panels and running COW.
Thank you.
So thank you. And I can hand things over to you to introduce perhaps the final act of the day.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. So I'm really happy that, we have COW group and we have a BIPOC writing group. And it's amazing how many students have come. Some come to one, some come to many. And it's just beautiful to have a space for people to create, to speak, to be able to share. So 2 of those readers are here. So Shanti and Sheila. So I guess Shanti, do you want to go first? So Shanti Dore, who has done just absolute amazing, insightful, reflective poetry. And like, I'm seeing these poems like as they're written in 5 minutes, and I'm always amazed by what people can produce in 10 minutes. So Shanti, please go ahead.
It's really been a pleasure to be in the COW group and the BIPOC writing group with you, Elle. It's I've learned so much. This poem was written in the BIPOC writing group, and it was African Liberation Month, and we read Audre Lorde's A Litany for Survival. So this poem was born from the prompt that day. My voice. I built my voice as I dove into myself, inch by inch, afraid of what I would see inside me. I found tiny fragments floating all around, like shrapnel, some lodged in the edges of me. I picked one up and looked inside. I was not shocked. I knew this part. The further I descended, the harder it became to hold the shattered pieces of my memories. They kept escaping my grasp like fruit flies, tiny and flying fast. I came back again stronger from examining the clues I found before. Like a jigsaw puzzle, the pieces don't fit at first. It's a guessing game, which grows in meaning and memory. One piece leads to another. I put them together and find something new. As I know more of myself, I depart with each revelation, needing space to catch my breath, to dive in once more. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanti. And you've been such a stalwart of the COW group and the writing groups. And I just really, I'm so honored by you reading today, as well as all the other students as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Sheila, just another amazing poet. From the very first day, I think Sheila might have been the first person to send me work and be like, look at this. So I'm really excited to have Sheila here. Yeah, thank you so much, Sheila. I'm so grateful for all the writing I've got to be a part of this semester. So go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. It's like really, like you're really inspiring, right? And you bring out the best of us. So it's like writing poems under 5 minutes doesn't seem possible until you egg us on. And I showed her my work to be edited for input. But anyway, so just so my poem's kind of rowdy. Just a warning. Okay. I am a take charge, take down kind of woman. My smile can wet sheets. My rejection have made men seep with wicked hate and anger, telling me, bitch, you're not even that pretty and how much weight did you gain? I've survived my first love leaving me, taking my virginity and my TD. I've been given chopsticks without asking, told to learn how to speak English, been asked for massages and blowjob, how tight my box is. I've been called a tranny and a hoe, questioned if I strip or clean for a living. I am your secret crush, the girl that you don't want your mother or wife to meet. And I will always be that girl with the frizzy hair whose thighs scratch, stomach not flat because it hangs when I breathe. I am Christmas in July, a mother giving birth, the girl who came by herself to the abortion clinic. I am a take charge, take down kind of woman. I am unruly. I drink too much whiskey. I swear too much. I try not to give a fuck. I'm a take charge, take down kind of woman, unmistakably and unapologetically Asian, proud and happy to be Filipina and human, just like you. Thank you.
Thank you. What a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much. I have to run because, as usual, I have something starting right away. I want to send all my love to all of you, to all of the student readers in particular. Like I said, so many people that have shared, made themselves vulnerable, being courageous, shared your beautiful work, like pushed me in reading your work. So everybody who I've met with, Andrew, Daniel, all of you, much love to you. I'm gonna run now because I'm like 2 minutes late, but I love all of you. Thank you so much. Cow is still tomorrow, so it's not over. Okay, bye, see you all. Bye.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for coming. We will have a video of this and we will be able to put it up on our, I think it's our, or we'll put it on our YouTube channel. But I don't know that I alerted all the readers to that fact because I just learned that fact. So if any of the readers have any concerns about that, just email me. We're not going to do it ASAP. So let me know if you have any questions or concerns about that. Otherwise, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sending all the greatest, best vibes out to everybody as the term wraps up. You've all done amazingly, no matter how well you've done, let me tell you. It's been just the most challenging year, and I'm really glad you all came to share this event with us all. So have a wonderful rest of your week. Good luck next week and the last week of term. And I hope to see you guys in person. I know we all do really, really soon.